Be prepared that gold possibly may dip below 1,000. That would be an exact 50% correction. Jim Rogers was interviewed just recently, and he says he's not sure and whatever. He's probably not sure, but he says he's not selling gold and he's not buying any. Now I know Mark Faber bought some more when it hit below 1,200. That was another one of his points. 1,200 is about 35 to 40% correction from the 1921 high, and a 50% correction would put it just a little bit below 1,000. Now, he says he doesn't see quite enough despair in the metals markets. I don't know, it's hard to say because there's not too many people into the metals in the first place. That's something that's a hard judgment call to actually say. But I want to point this out. The economy is not doing well despite all the hoopla and BS they're throwing out there. And you know how I know? You could skip not looking at the precious metals prices, but look at the actual metals prices like aluminum, zinc, and copper especially. Copper, they don't call it Dr. Copper for no reason. That's been going down the last 2 years, which tells you the productivity is going down. And actually, China's actually starting to put out some real numbers. Well, they're not even real, but they're at least admitting they're below their targets for the first time in over a decade. They're going to have to do a lot more QE. Now, I saw some articles about Ben Bernanke was doing a great job, and everybody should really acknowledge that what he did was the right path. He didn't do too much QE and all this type of stuff. Ben Bernanke's totally on the inside. Ben Bernanke does QE to actually only help the top people. That money does not get into the middle class in any way, shape, or form. It's only there to buy up troubled assets, and he's actually creating deflation where the real economy is, and pumping in real money into the top of the banks. So when things go bust in the general economy, they could buy up those troubled assets. They'll have plenty of cash to do so. It's a scam game. Now, the one thing is, the elite possibly, I know these guys, if you want to call them the elite or whatever, they can possibly lose control of the situation. It looks like the bond market, for real, is getting ready to implode. It's, it's not, I don't know if it's going to happen. It's already signs that things are cracking, So, the only way they're going to actually be able to address that was massive amounts of QE. And it looks like the problems in China, the only way they're going to address that is with massive amounts of QE. And that looks like what Japan's been doing. Now, if other countries do massive amounts of QE in, like, say, the United States and Europe and in China, Japan's going to be double screwed, man, because the whole reason they were doing massive amounts of QE was to raise their exports to devalue their yen. Well, if you have other countries devaluing their currencies against your currency, your exports aren't going to be raised, and they've already hit the gas in the afterburners as hard as they could on QE already. So Japan might be the first nation to really kind of blow up, unfortunately, because I think Japan is a really great nation, in my opinion anyway, and but they're going to get screwed up first, I think. Of the major industrial nations, I think Japan's going to get screwed up first. Right now their QE is kind of working, but and it's not going to work when China has to hit the gas really hard. Europe has to. See, austerity, like in Europe, they're already having major problems. Like in Portugal was one problem where I think the Prime Minister just resigned a couple weeks ago because the austerity is not working. It's too extreme. They're going to actually have to embark on opposite policies. So we're probably going to get into extreme, what you call, currency wars. But every country is, and this is going to happen, I think, it's going to start happening in about a couple months. It's going to start happening fairly soon. But especially when China tries to push that, their economy up, that's going to really implicate a lot of things for the world. But it's a fact that Bernanke, despite all the QE he did, it really didn't get into the economy to help stimulate the economy. It's just been held on the top. and that money's been used to buy troubled assets. He's actually creating deflation in the economy itself and pumping out all the cash on the top. Now, if you're a fan of cash, in a way you're a fan of the casino racket paper that Bernanke's pumping out. That's what you're really doing. You're subjugating yourself to his will. That's what you're doing. So, it's like the way I look at it with the silver and the gold and the metals and stuff, it's almost like a battle. It's not going to always go the way you want it to go, because this is actually a little bit more than an investment. It's more like a battle against the freaking casino central bank scam artists. That's really what the hell it is. And we already found out who the betrayers are in this camp, who were former leaders. And if people have not found out already, I'm going to point it out. Eric Sprott sold silver on April 28th. He sold it again in the middle of 2011. The whole deal with Max Kaiser pumping up Eric Sprott was that he was a silver vigilante, and by him buying silver and taking it off the market, he's going to crush JP Morgan's short position. I mean, that was the bullshit line he kept throwing out there anyway, right? Well, the deal. I mean, Max Kaiser, the same thing with the Bitcoins. He pumped that bullshit up right before it blew up too, right? So we already know basically the ones to really avoid, but the actual principle is still solid. It's like, you really got to not partake in the bullshit all the way. That's really what it comes down to. You should not partake in the bullshit all the way. Now, if silver goes even lower, I'm going to just keep buying some more of it. That's all there is to it. I'm going to keep buying some more of it. And, I'm not going to go hog wild on any one area because I'm already in it pretty hard. But, I can wait, and I can wait. I don't work for the government. I don't get a check from the government. I earned every freaking bit of money I got. I used to work past midnight for many years in a row. And by the way, I want to address this. I remember when I got out of the Marine Corps, I put in between 500 and 700 applications to work for the federal government, and I did not land one of them. So I'm going to tell you something. What my observation was, it's like what I am is why I didn't get in. That's my observation. And I've noticed this with the government. So I highly resent it when anybody says, I take something from the government and that's where I get money from. No, I earn it. I earn it. I ain't one of the anointed people out there that gets hooked up. I definitely am not. And there ain't nobody that outworks me, man. You know what? It's like I say a lot of times the Chinese and the Japanese work harder than Americans. I put them to shame, man. I put them to shame. So I'm hooked. I can last a long time and wait this bullshit out. So that's the deal. And but I don't have total faith in what Jim Rogers says either. This guy's been known to be wrong, and I think the timing. If there's going to be a gold washout, I don't know if it's going to be like 2 years from now or all this kind of bullshit, because a lot of these things that I think Bernanke's talking his way about taper, especially because he's on his way out. Taper ain't going to happen. And there's a couple other things I always said before about outside events. Outside events, such as something that can happen in the Middle East, is something that can actually drive up the prices of commodities and gold, especially because of, I'll say it's fear. It's like people get scared of all the markets. They get scared of what people are doing in the currencies. They're scared of what's happening in the bond market. There's uncertainty in the world. If it gets like in that situation, then they start running into gold, because it's always been, the real storage of wealth that's lasted throughout the ages. That's when they start running into it, and then the price goes up. So as far as what Jim Rogers said about it going below 1,000, I don't know what would drive it that low right now, but I think if it doesn't go, I think the correction period for the metals is going to be over by the end of the summer. And, as far as what price it's going to get to, it's difficult to say. Like, silver's got a pretty heavy, solid base at 18. It does. Um, if, by the end of this summer, though, we're going to be talking about the fiscal budgets for the next year. Europe's going to be talking about their new budgets. China's going to have to address their situation where they're actually in contraction right now and they're not meeting goals. So their only option is to do lots of QE. So I think that's going to cause the markets to start popping back up again. But if you look in reality, has the economies in the world been doing good the last couple of years despite, all the numbers they throw out? Look at the price of copper. It's been going down. It went from like about $5 down to the low $3. That's a major drop. That's a major drop. It was almost up to $5, I think, at one point in time, and it got down to close to the low, like about $3. That's a major drop after 2 years. And everybody's focused in on gold and silver, but actually it's the economy itself that's slow. And all the QE is only being held on the top by the banks. And, it's basically money used to buy troubled assets, which is going into the central bank. That's what's really going on. But eventually, how are these banks going to unwind their balance sheets with all their treasury notes? Oh, big question. Big question. What happens when that money that's being held in these big banks, where the Federal Reserve pumps the QE into, and they hold treasury notes, and the Federal Reserve takes the troubled assets off their books? What happens when all those treasury notes, where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? They're going to go right into the economy, and they're going to go into the middle class. That is really why you're holding this silver and gold. And you better keep up with that very important consideration, because, after all, it really is just paper. And Bernanke, the magician, has done a very good job. He has. He has done a very good job. And, people that are convinced that paper is the safety, Bernanke has won with those people. I'll just leave you with that.